I battled insulin resistance for 6 years, and nobody ever told me about this little breakfast habit that would make all the difference. I put a lot of effort into dieting, cutting calories, scheduling my workouts precisely, and even fasting. All of that was effective. However, why was this one item absent? The brain is literally told to turn off appetite systems by the simple action we can take with breakfast. Inflammation is the most important factor associated with insulin resistance. Adipose tissue fat is the most inflammatory substance our bodies can have. This easy breakfast trick will help us shed more fat by lowering inflammation, which prevents insulin from reaching the cell. We can then begin to address insulin resistance. Warning, it's not fasting. It has to do with protein, but it's not the straightforward claim that protein is satisfying and filling that we've been hearing on YouTube for the past 2 years. Before it began to reappear more on X around a year ago, it was something that had been somewhat hidden in the studies. We'll start by explaining what this breakfast hack is in this video. Second, we'll discuss the meals that go best with it. Thirdly, we will discuss a more detailed plan that you may follow, including a food and even a structure, to begin correcting insulin resistance while also losing a significant amount of weight. The breakfast hack protein hack, then, is something that was published in the AJCN in 2005, but was somewhat forgotten when discussing protein leverage. Proteins send signals to our liver, brain, and hypothalamus. Additionally, our brain and liver will keep telling our body to consume more and more calories until we hit a certain protein target, which is measured in protein grams. Saying, "Eat a lot of protein because it's satiated," is not the same as this. It takes a long time to digest, so yes, but it's the same kind of stuff as fiber, etc. Fantastic. However, this isn't the situation. The most crucial thing is that we reach this goal. I'll tell you the goal number, but we need to be a little more specific about when and how we'll use it. You should aim for a minimum of 0.6 grams per pound of body weight, according to the study. This implies that you should attempt to meet that goal for breakfast. Furthermore, more recent research indicates that you can still absorb a large amount of protein in a single meal. This is extremely liberating for insulin resistance because it means that you could eat higher amounts of protein with breakfast. If you reach your protein goal, you won't feel particularly hungry. As a result, you will consume less, lose more body fat, reduce inflammation, and enhance insulin sensitivity. More than anything else, keep in mind that insulin sensitivity is an inflammatory disorder. When the brain and liver stop telling the body to eat excessively, counter-regulatory hormones are released, which is why this helps with insulin resistance so much. And this actually reduces inflammation and improves insulin sensitivity. This was much simpler than everything I did, and I wish I had known that. I'm now grateful for everything I did because it helped me create this amazing channel and a successful business by teaching others about what I've done. However, in practice, achieving that target and meeting those protein goals early in the day alters the ecosystem as a whole. We must now discuss the precise timing and the remainder of the day. After that, we'll discuss particular foods that have a significant influence. Well done, you've achieved your goal. Your total protein goal isn't that. That's the target of your brain. That's the first thing you hit in the morning. That's fantastic. What does the remainder of the day entail? Well, a lot of this signaling also has to do with the gut. All right. So, one of the things I would advise is to take a probiotic or drink some kefir after your breakfast, after you've digested it. This will help your gut function properly because the gut's communication with the hypothalamus is crucial. We've seen that in the literature. If you need a good probiotic, that's the one. If you're already using one, that's excellent. Just try it about 30 to 45 minutes after you eat, so you're fully digested, so it doesn't get broken down too much with the hydrochloric acid. Do this at lunch, throughout digestion. When it comes to lunch, You still want to target protein, but you want more of a rapid digesting protein. Before you sit down for lunch, eating a whey protein shake sounds a little bit wild, but what occurs is, even temporarily, we are waiting for these protein needs to be met. So we have a daily target, but it does sort of shift a bit throughout the day. There's even individual protein targets around each mealtime. Again, this is independent, and apart from just the entire protein, is satiating issue. But in a minute, we're going to speak about additional items that we need to shoot for. Other foods that if the body doesn't receive enough of, you'll just keep eating until you get to it. All right. So back to lunch. Need to get that protein in. Therefore, it will be much simpler to avoid overindulging at lunch if you have a whey protein shake before you eat. All right. I want you to schedule your carbohydrate intake for dinner time now. Now, for those who are insulin resistant, it sounds ridiculous. Since carbohydrates will raise my blood sugar, I don't want to eat them right before bed. I assure you of this. You get the second meal impact if you eat carbohydrates earlier in the day. You may experience elevated blood sugar levels at supper as a result of the carbohydrates you had at lunch. All right? Now that's not the essential thing here. The big issue is if you stack your carbs towards the evening and you've done a good job of hitting your protein targets, you naturally won't eat as much carbohydrates throughout the day. Furthermore, it has been demonstrated by several extensive surveys that the lower the protein intake, the more calories humans and animals will consume until their protein requirements are satisfied. Because your protein needs won't be satisfied, you will undoubtedly wind up consuming carbohydrates throughout the day if your protein intake is lower. Thus, until you reach that point, your caloric intake will rise. All right? Therefore, if you eat your carbohydrates in the evening, they are out of sight and out of mind, and you may not even want them when you get there. In order to restore the damaged link between the cell and insulin, it is better to reduce your intake of carbohydrates if you are insulin resistant. Let's now discuss particular best foods items. This is crucial. The particular foods are important. Indeed, protein is essential, but what kind of protein is it? This is the point at which a breakfast of eggs is incredibly effective. Not only do eggs include protein, but they also contain choline. All right, so this is the precursor to acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter. If you're a neurology nerd, this sounds great. However, cholinergic deficiency disrupts the energy flow in your brain. Additionally, you often use additional systems to try to boost your brain's energy when it is disturbed. Increased sugar, calories, and so forth. Cravings enter the picture at this point. Thus, eggs are the best by far. However, there's something intriguing. You reach all these other tiny micronutrient targets if you can combine a small amount of beef with your eggs, or, heaven forbid, if you enjoy beef liver, those B vitamins, and just the multivitamin component of beef and beef liver. We're beginning to understand that nutrient density may be more important than calories in and calories out. Until you reach your vitamin needs, your body will simply seek food, right? It explains why processed meals that are high in taste and low in nutrients are problematic, since we consume a lot of them but never meet our nutrient requirements. Thus, we continue to consume more and more. What if the problem with processed foods wasn't that they were processed? More than anything, they are malnourished. Therefore, beef liver combined with some eggs and even a multivitamin might be able to aid a little. Then, however, there is data about calcium. One important one is calcium. Because bone health and structure are so vital to the body, we must meet our calcium requirements. What do you do then? Whip breakfast is what I suggest. As crazy as it sounds, you smash your egg into the omelette after taking a part of its shell. But cheese is another option. Sardines with bones can also be eaten. Cottage cheese is another option. You could eat Icelandic skyrs and Greek yogurt. To acquire the calcium, just focus on the dairy protein. To summarize, Protocol requires 0.66 grams of protein per pound of body weight in the morning, and the doubly labeled experiments have shown that we can meet this requirement. All right, so we can see that even at high concentrations, the protein is absorbed. All right, so you want more protein that absorbs quickly at lunch, carbohydrates that are distributed in the evening, and a high-nutrient breakfast. By doing this, we can temporarily shift our attention away from calories and eat until our brains tell us that we are truly full. Now, taking 3g of this compound at night won't be effective if you're having trouble sleeping. In my video, I demonstrated how 3 grams of this substance may actually put you to sleep through the night without requiring you to wake up to even go to the bathroom. It's not a sleep aid, but it does assist you fall asleep. If you would like to watch the video, I have included a link to it right here.